I have cracked the apostate brainwashing code. Now, when I say I cracked the apostate brainwashing code, I'm referring to the brainwashing program that the organization uses to convince Jehovah's Witnesses that anything negative from any outside source is so-called apostate. So this is a real brainwashing program that they are programmed with. And I've cracked the code on exactly how it works and how to basically remove it and defeat it and actually wake up any Jehovah's Witness. Now, when I say that this will wake up any Jehovah's Witness, I can't guarantee that they're not going to choose to go right back to sleep because some people, for example, some people like to stay in controlling abusive situations. So I can't guarantee what a Jehovah's Witness is going to do with this information, but I can guarantee that this will snap them out of the hypnosis. It will snap them out of the hypnosis and they will not be able to call you an apostate. So the example we're going to use is actually in the very last video that I did titled Jehovah's Witnesses Secretly Connected to Machu Picchu. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining everything in this video, but I'm going to give you a short summary for those who haven't seen that last video, just so that you can familiarize yourself with the information we're going to use to wake up any Jehovah's Witness. So basically, if you notice, there's a poster of Machu Picchu right on the right corner of Sophia's bedroom. So to find this information, you want to go to jw.org and search for the video God Makes It Grow. And right about 40 seconds into that video is where you're going to see this picture of Machu Picchu right on Sophia's bedroom. And in the last video that I did, I basically show general information you can find online on how this place, Machu Picchu, basically had a lot of worship to false gods, worship at the Sun Temple. And the most disturbing thing is that there's also human sacrifices. And some of the sacrifices were actually children. So children were actually killed and offered up to the false god. So this was general information that I shared in the last video. But where this gets interesting is that, and I didn't cover this in the last video, is that on Watchtower Online Library, for some mysterious reason, they've done several articles in their Awake magazine about Machu Picchu. Now, I'm not even sure what that has to do with Jehovah's Witnesses and the message they preach, but for some reason, they like to publicize or they like to publish a lot of stuff about Machu Picchu for some reason. So the reason that this is very important to understand is that the only excuse that witnesses could come up with of why Machu Picchu was in Sophia's bedroom is if they were going to try to say, well, maybe the Watchtower organization didn't know. They didn't know about the worship and the Temple of the Sun and the virgins and the children murders, children being murdered to sacrifice to the gods. Like, that's basically the only excuse that anybody could come up with is maybe Watchtower didn't know when they used the poster. So when the Watchtower Society on their own website, way before Caleb and Sophia ever was created, when they're admitting this stuff, then this is a checkmate moment for Watchtower because there's no other excuse because they know exactly all the horrific things that happen at this place. So let me just read, for example, some of these articles. This is from the Awake 1992. And if you notice at the top left, the abbreviation, if you want to look up these Awake articles, is G92, 122, page 24 through 27. Now, I don't know why that the letter G is for Awake, because when you look up anything else in the Watchtower online library, it usually has the letter of what you're looking up. So if you're looking up the Watchtower, it says W. So I don't know why, but for whatever reason, if you want to look up the Awake magazine, it's under G for some reason. G apparently G means awake. And I'm not going to get into further rabbit holes on other organizations that use the word G or use the letter G because I don't know why awake is abbreviated with a G when you're searching stuff up. But anyway, so G92 is how you find this. And it's the Awake 1992. And the article is a look at the golden age of the Incas. So I'm just going to focus on what I have highlighted. It mentions the Temple of the Sun. So right away, that's automatically false religion and satanic Jehovah's Witnesses. And then it says, all eyes now focus on the high priest as he kills the sacrificial llama, extracts the still beating heart, and performs an act of divination. I mean, that's enough right there that exposes Watchtower. Everything I just read is considered extremely demonic and extremely satanic according to Watchtower. So why would they take a poster of a place where they're admitting their sacrificial animals and still beating hearts being extracted from them to perform divination, right? And this is on Sophia's bedroom. But then if you go to the bottom, you notice that it flat out says Machu Picchu, right? So it's very clear that this is what they're talking about. So let me just show you another article from Watchtower Online Library. So this one, and you can look it up by G89, right? Still don't know why the letter G is used for awake, but anyway, so an awake 1989, treading the steps of the Incas. So this one says, one theory holds that it was a refuge for virgins of the sun, perhaps making most of the chambers that Bigham uncovered contain the remains of females. So I just highlighted that part because it makes a reference to the Sun Temple at Machu Picchu and mentioned virgins of the sun. And they uncovered the remains of females. So what it's basically saying is they found the dead bodies, right? It's not just a theory, like the dead bodies were there of these virgins. And again, you notice it also makes reference to Machu Picchu. So just important because you can see it's spelled out on Sophia's wall. And it only gets worse from here. So this one, it's a G98, and that's an Awake 1998, How the Incas Lost Their Golden Empire. So this one says, virgins of outstanding beauty were trained from as young as 8 years of age to be virgins of the sun. Again, going back to the Sun Temple, archaeological evidence indicates that the Incas also offered up human sacrifices. They sacrificed children to the Apis or mountain gods. Some bodies of children have been found frozen on the Edine peaks. So again, they're making it clear they found the dead bodies of the children that were sacrificed to the Apis and mountain gods. So, and this is Watchtower Online Library. So Watchtower is fully aware that at Machu Picchu, not only was there divination and hearts being extracted while they're still beating to perform acts of divination, if that's not bad enough, virgins were sacrificed and killed, and it makes it a point that children were sacrificed, and they found the dead bodies of their children frozen to death. So after reading out from the Watchtower Online Library, Why did they put that on Sophia's wall? A place of divination and false gods and murdered children sacrificing to the gods, and they put it in a child's bedroom. So we get into more detail. Me and my co-host, who Miss T goes by the name of Miss T. She's the one that actually uncovered this Machu Picchu poster. So if you want more information about that, you want to watch the last video that I did with Miss T. But this is the information that we're going to use to wake up any Jehovah's Witness, wake them up out of the hypnosis, and crack the apostate brainwashing code. So before I explain how to break this apostate code, I want to give you a real life example of how this apostate brainwashing code actually works. So this is a real story that happened with me and my ex-Jehovah's Witness wife. So I also have a video on my page titled Watchtower Secretly Using Spiritistic Music or something like that. I forget the exact title of it. So if you want further information, you can watch that video that really breaks this down. So basically, the reason I'm showing you this is because it's an example of how the apostate brainwashing code actually works. So in a 2016 convention video, this video titled Jehovah Will Treat His Loyal One in a Special Way is a video on the resurrection. So as most Jehovah's Witnesses are taught that they produce all their own music, for some strange reason they used what's considered a New Age artist, which by Jehovah's Witness standards, New Age would be demonic by their standards. And not only did they use a New Age artist, I'm sorry, they didn't use a New Age artist. They basically stolen this song directly from this album. Now, I don't know if they got permission to do it or not, but basically, they took a song called Eternal Flame, which means hellfire, and they took this song from a New Age album that means hellfire, and they overlaid it on a resurrection video, taking credit for it, making the witnesses believe that the music was created by them. So anyway, so this was one of the things that I tried to show my ex-Jehovah's Witness wife because I was desperately trying to wake her up. So I explained the situation to her, and right away she said, "What apostate website were you on? What were you listening to?" Right. So again, remember what I said earlier, the way this apostate program works is if you try to show them anything that's outside of the Watchtower Online Library or jw.org, anything that implies anything negative is automatically apostate. So right away, when I just tried to explain this to her, she already said it was apostate. And I said, "Well, can I play it for you?" She said, "No, I don't want to hear it because it's apostate." So what I ended up doing was I used a little bit of street smarts. So she refused to let me play this for her because she already said it was apostate. So what I ended up doing was like the very next day we were in bed and I just started playing the iTunes track because the resurrection video in the 2016 convention, it just happened to be coincidentally one of my ex-wife's favorite JW videos. So I started playing it directly from iTunes. This is the song from the resurrection video, right? And she said, "Yeah." So then I said, "I'm actually playing it from iTunes from the demonic artists." Now, again, I'm not saying that this is demonic, but that's Jehovah's Witnesses teach that this would be demonic. So when I told her it was iTunes, she got very upset with me and she said, "I told you I didn't want to listen to that." And again, because that's the brainwashing talking, right? So she didn't even want to listen to it because she already viewed it as apostate. But when I played it, she had no choice but to acknowledge when I asked her and I said, "That's the convention music, right?" And she said, "Yes." So even though she was upset with me, there was a crack now in the brainwashing because she heard it. I basically tricked her. I just played it anyway when she said she didn't want to listen to it. So once she heard it was very or once she heard that it sounded exactly like the convention video, she then went to find a convention video, and then she played the convention video, then she played the iTunes, and she kept going back and forth like a robot almost, right? Like a robot. She was probably sitting there for a half an hour, and she kept playing each one because she was desperately trying to hear that it's not the same song. But obviously it is the same song. So she sat there like a robot playing each one, and she could not deny the fact that it was the same exact song. So when I basically flat out said to her, it's the same song, all she could say was, it does sound the same. And that was it. She couldn't admit anything else besides that, but she decided it does sound the same. And I kept saying, it is the same. So the very next day, she comes back and says, "Oh no, the Watchtower online library." And she read me this article. I didn't even look at the article because I was so disgusted, but she shows me this, or she reads to me this Watchtower online library article. She asked me to read it, but I told her I didn't want to see it. And the article basically said how the organization produces all their own music and all that stuff. So she says, "Oh, the Watchtower, nope. We produce our own music." And I said, "Yeah, but you heard it yourself, right? You heard it yourself." And the thing about the song Eternal Flame from Audio Machine is that it came out in 2012. The convention video was 2016. So it's very clear that the Watchtower took something that was considered a new age, and then they put on their convention video lying to all their members thinking it's their own creation. But the thing is, once she found an article on Watchtower Online Library that basically says they create their own music, then that was it. That was the truth. So she's now starting to doubt what she heard with their own ears. It didn't even matter if she heard it's the same song because the Watchtower Online Library said they produce all their own music. So then again, she asked me, she said, "Oh, here, read it." And she wanted me to read this article as if that's the authority. So I said, "I don't have to read this article because I can hear my own ears. It's the same song. They're lying to us, right? The organization is lying. They don't produce all their own music." But she went with the Watchtower Online Library. Now, the reason I wanted to mention that is because that is how that apostate brainwashing program actually works. It doesn't matter that she heard with her own ears, it's the same song. Anything that is not directly from Watchtower Online Library or jw.org that implies in any way that the organization is lying or that they're false religion, it's automatically apostate. So anything on iTunes, this album, audio, it's all apostate information because it's not coming from Watchtower Online Library or jw.org. And this is very similar to the same thing with the Royal Australia Commission. So many Jehovah's Witnesses had woken up from the Royal Australia Commission when this governing body member, he lied so many times, he lied just as much as Satan lies, or more than Satan lies, right? So this guy who's supposed to be anointed by Jehovah's Spirit, one of only 8 men. Well, now I think there are like 9 governing body members, but basically out of billions of people on the planet, this is one of only out of like 9 men that God directly appointed over the whole entire planet. So anyway, so when you watch this and you hear him lie about, he just lies so much that many Jehovah's Witnesses had woken up out of the hypnosis who did watch this. Unfortunately, most Jehovah's Witnesses will not even watch this because it's apostate, according to them. Because again, the Royal Australia Commission, even though this was an official case where a governing body member was forced to testify and he lied the whole time, the fact that it is not being broadcast from jw.org or Watchtower Online Library, it's apostate. So most witnesses won't even watch it because it's apostate. And it's the same thing what happened with my ex-wife that even though that she heard from iTunes it's the same exact song, it doesn't matter because iTunes is not JW library or jw.org. So this is the way that this apostate brainwashing program works. They have convinced the organization, everybody in it, that anything negative that implies they're a false religion or that they're deceiving people is automatically apostate if it's not from jw.org or Watchtower Online Library. Only if it's good information can they believe it, right? So if an outside source says something good about Jehovah's Witnesses, then they can say it's true, right? So conveniently, only if it's negative is it apostate. Anything that's not from jw.org or Watchtower Online Library. It's a very clever system, and it's very simple. So now I'm going to show you how you can crack this code and wake up any Jehovah's Witness, because this is basically the whole foundation of this religion. This is why witnesses don't wake up, because the brainwashing is so strong. They won't look at anything outside of Watchtower Online Library or jw.org because it's automatically apostate, because they're brainwashed, obviously. So now let's take a look at how you can crack this code. So I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide on how you can snap any Jehovah's Witness out of the hypnosis, and they will not once call you an apostate for doing so. And they will look at every single thing you show them. Now, again, I can't guarantee that they're not going to willingly stay and go back to sleep, but this will definitely wake them up. But it's important also to follow these steps in order, because if you get too excited and you don't follow the order of these steps, if that apostate alarm starts to go off, then they're going to walk away and they're not going to listen to anything. So it's very important. If you want to be successful with this, you must follow these steps and this specific order. So the first step is ask a JW if they ever heard of Machu Picchu. So this is step number one. So whoever you're trying to wake up, a family member, an elder, whoever it is, first just ask them, have they ever heard of Machu Picchu? Some may have heard of it, but regardless of if they did hear about it or if they never heard of it, you then want to go to step two after you have asked them if they heard of it. So step two, say to them, notice what the Watchtower Online Library says about Machu Picchu. Right? So it's very simple, right? You first just ask them if they heard of it, and then say, well, notice what the Watchtower Online Library says about this. Now, as soon as you mention Watchtower Online Library, they're all on board because basically the Watchtower Online Library is Jehovah. It is Jehovah. They of course they don't know that because of the way the brainwashing is, but in their mind, whatever the Watchtower Online Library says, it is the same as if God spoke it himself. So at this point, they're all on board, right? They have no objection to what you're going to show them because you're saying to them, notice what the Watchtower Online Library says about Machu Picchu. So then you want to be selective about which articles you share. So the first one that you want to share is G92, Awake 1992, an article, a look at the golden age of the Incas. So what I have highlighted is what you want to show them from the Watchtower Online Library. You want to mention the Temple of the Sun, and you could even read that paragraph that says how all eyes now focus on the high priest as he kills the sacrificial llama, extracts the still beating heart, and performs an act of divination, right? That's a good way to make it clear to the witnesses that this is a demonic place according to their teachings. But then you want to make sure that they see that it says Machu Picchu. That's important that they see that. So at this point, you can show them another article because again, you're staying on track, right? You're staying within the bounds of their brainwashing, right? As long as you're on jw.org or Watchtower Online Library, they will look at anything you show them. So then I would go to this article next from the 1998, where it says, or the 1988 Awake, How the Incas Lost the Golden Empire. So you can read some where it says virgins of outstanding beauty were trained as young as 8 years of age to be virgin of the sun. Archaeological evidence indicates that the Incas also offered human sacrifices. They sacrificed children to the Apis and mountain gods. Right? So you want to definitely make sure you emphasize how they sacrifice children. And one thing that I just want to make clear too is that in the previous article, you want to make sure they see Machu Picchu so they understand that this all talking about the same thing. Because in this article, I don't see them specifically name the Machu Picchu. Like, I don't see them specifically name that, but clearly they're talking about the same temple, the Temple of the Sun and the sacrifices. So you want to make sure that they can see the word Machu Picchu in the other article, but then bring them to this article to emphasize what they did to the children. So then step number three, then go to jw.org children's section and play God Makes It Grow. So remember at this point, you're staying within the brainwash program, right? You're only showing them jw.org and Watchtower Online Library. So as long as you don't come across too aggressive, they're going to be in tune to everything that you're showing them. So then go to the children's section and remember you just got done telling them how they sacrifice children. So after you show them how they sacrifice children, then bring them to the children's section of jw.org. And then go to God Makes It Grow. And you could play right from the beginning because it's in the first 40 seconds, or you can just skip right to the scene with Machu Picchu, which is about 40 seconds in. So then you can pause it on this scene, and now you can ask them what irritation, right? You want to be nice as you're showing them what the Watchtower Online Library actually says. But now that you brought them to this poster in a children's bedroom, you can be a little irritated now when you ask them, why would they put a site where they sacrifice children in a children's bedroom? Right? But don't be too aggressive because you still don't want them to run away because you're now waking them up. So now when you ask them that question, this is where it becomes a checkmate moment because you see the way the programming works is only if you show them something negative outside of Watchtower Online Library, jw.org, is an apostate. So they will read anything, they will believe anything that the Watchtower Online Library says. It's just like with my ex-wife, she admitted it sounded exactly the same, the iTunes song and the Song on a Resurrection video. But once she read a Watchtower article that basically said, no, they produce their own music, this was authority over what she heard with her own ears, right? The witnesses will doubt themselves based on what the Watchtower Online Library says. This is the authority. In fact, what Watchtower says about Machu Picchu holds more weight than all the general secular information out there about the site, right? And this is similar to with the 607 BCE. It doesn't matter that all these Bible scholars and archaeological evidence, they all say 587 BCE. None of that matters because the Watchtower Online Library says 607 BCE. So period, right? What they say in the Watchtower Online Library, it overrides everything on the planet. And I know that may sound like exaggeration, but that is how strongly these people are brainwashed. So when you can show them on their website that they acknowledge that children were murdered and killed at this place, and there was divination and offering still beating hearts to the false gods. So why the hell is that in Sophia's bedroom? Right? And this is how you can wake them up by following these steps because at no point can they call you an apostate. At no point are they going to say what apostate website you were on because you can find all the information about Machu Picchu on their library. So if you follow these steps, once you ask them about the poster on the wall, they're not going to be able to be defensive in any way. And they're going to be now left wondering why the poster is there. And that is the moment that you will see that the brainwash program is released. They have snapped out of it because you show them directly on the website. So you're only going to get two answers. And let me know if you try this and you get a third answer. But from the way I understand the brainwashing is that there's only two things they can say. What you'll probably get is, I don't know why it's there. Right? That's probably what you'll get because they're going to be stunned. They're going to be shocked. So they're going to simply say, I don't know why it's there. They're not going to be quick to admit, oh, wow, we're being lied to, but their response is probably just going to simply be, I don't know. But you were successful because you showed them this and they can't call you apostate and they're listening to you. Now, the only other thing that I think will come out of their mouth is the rogue artist theory, right? And I mentioned more about the rogue artist theory in my last video, but they may come up with the rogue artist theory because the brainwashing is so strong that when you show them this, there's nothing they can say. So they may say, oh, well, maybe it was just some evil person at Bethel, right? Like just some guy in the art department did it, right? And I don't know why they would think that Jehovah would allow this to get into Sophia's bedroom, like without it being stopped before it got released. But if they say the rogue artist theory, they might not because I think they'll be so shocked they're just going to say, I don't know. But if they do mention the rogue artist theory and they try to say maybe it was just some guy in the art department, then as a bonus step, get your hand on a You Can Live Forever in Paradise book. And if you can't get your hands on this book, order it on eBay. Right? The last time I checked, you can go on eBay and you can find this book and order it. Trust me, it's worth it because we're talking about waking people up, waking up family members. Now, you don't want to show them a PDF copy because remember, the way the brainwashing program works is that anything outside of Watchtower Online Library or jw.org is apostate. So you don't want to just try to find some PDF online because the Watchtower doesn't have the original PDF on their website. So any other outside source you try to use, any digital information, they're going to maybe not trust it. So, and on the jw.org website, they removed all the pictures from the book. So you can find the Luke Can Live Forever in Paradise book on your website, but they removed all the pictures to get rid of the evidence. So anyway, order this book. Make sure it's the hard copy. And then, so if they say the rogue artist theory, then bring them to page 244, and you can point out the Egyptian god in the background. And I also did a video on my page titled Egyptian God Planted in JW Paradise book. And you can watch that video if you need to find how you can find the right images of this Egyptian god because you want to be able to show them what this Egyptian god looks like to show them it's the same thing in the Paradise book. But the reason this is a good bonus step is because if they try to use the rogue artist theory and say maybe just some guy did that in the art department who's evil and he acted alone, that's when you can show them that in 1982 they were doing the same thing. Right? So, and then you can say to them, what is it, the same guy? You think just some random person at Bethel did this? Well, who did this one? Right? Then you can explain that they've been doing this since the very beginning of the religion. Since the very beginning of the religion, they've been adding these subliminal messages in the background. And this is why, if you follow these steps, you can crack this code. You will not be called an apostate, and they will wake up. And when I said it in the beginning of this video, how this will wake up any Jehovah's Witness out of hypnosis, again, I'm not saying I can't guarantee they're going to leave the religion. I'm not saying that, but they will physically be knocked out of the hypnosis because the hypnosis tells them that anything negative outside of Watchtower Online Library, jw.org, is apostate. That is the way the brainwashing works. So when you follow these steps and you show them all the demonic stuff that happened at Machu Picchu from their own Watchtower Online Library, and then ask them why it's in Sophia's bedroom, it will knock them out of the hypnosis. There is no hypnosis that can go to you're an apostate. It's apostate information. What apostate website were you on? So now they can now think for themselves. They can see what the Watchtower Online Library says. There is no excuse. There's no apostasy. And this is what I call a checkmate moment. Now, for those who aren't really familiar with the game of chess, just to briefly explain the term checkmate. So in a game of chess, the whole idea is you have to kill the other person's king. So whenever you trap the king, or the king is about, when you're about to kill the other person's king, you have to say check. And check means, hey, they're about to lose their king, so they better move the king out the way. So basically, when you say check the other person, they kind of have to dance around the board and just try to avoid getting caught, is basically what it means when you say check. Now, checkmate is when the king is trapped. There is no other way for them to move. They can't run and hide. They can't keep trying to avoid getting caught. Checkmate is when the other person's king is completely surrounded and there is no other move for them to make. And then the game is over. And that's checkmate. And this is a true checkmate moment in Watchtower because they can't say it's apostate when it's on their own website. So when they admit that Machu Picchu was extracting beaten hearts that are still beating and using them for divination and then killing children and offering up to the false gods. When they put that on their website and then put Machu Picchu and be so bold and arrogant that they spell it out, they could have just put the picture of the Sun Temple and not be so obvious. But when they actually spell it out, it's checkmate because there's nothing that they can say. They can't say it's apostate. They can't say it's false information. They can't say, oh, Watchtower didn't know what Machu Picchu was. They can't say any of that stuff. If they try to say, oh, it's the rogue artist, it was just some random person that planted that in there. Well, they've been doing it since the very beginning of the first Watchtower magazine. The name Watchtower and the cover of the first Watchtower magazine, it is subliminal to the tarot card called the Tower.